recording. Okay, there you go.
Oh,
Okay.
right on time.
Right on time, yes. Well, we try to cut all this hello in the beginning. But so the answer is yes, we will be recording, and we will be posting the recording tomorrow on our page, on our Facebook and LinkedIn pages. Okay, so it's available for everybody on our pages.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other important questions before we start, like reminding us to record?
I'd like to remind everyone to mute. I'm Chaim Mateh from HP Indigo, Rehovot, Israel.
Okay, thank you very much. But for now, you don't have to mute. You can say hello, and then we'll mute.
I understand, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
Hi, Aliza. Good to see you too. Okay, so I think we will start because we would like to sorry. I think we will start. Your time is precious and you all came on time, so we will start and have people join us if they do. So hi, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Anat and I manage Expert Team. We specialize both in technical writing and training development, so the whole knowledge arena. I know a lot of you from over the years. We're celebrating 20 this year, so we've been around for a little while. Thank you. We will have today we will have two very special people present. Yochi, head of documentation in Expert Team, who a lot of you know, and Shachar, who is a VP in Expert Team and has a specialty in the last few months of AI. So the webinar today will be on AI and AI tool, and specifically trying to be very, very practical to our needs as technical writers. Okay, it still is a new field. We are learning. Everybody's learning. We will bring and share with you a lot of what we've learned and practiced over the last few months. And of course, this is also open for discussion, and we'll be very, very happy to also hear from you. The chat is open, and you're very welcome to post questions as we go along. We have Iggy and Ran that are monitoring the chat, and if there's any questions on the way, please feel free to write to us, and we'll try to answer it on the go. And of course, there'll be time for questions and answers when we finish. So thank you all for coming. It was great seeing you, and let's start. So over to Yochi and Shachar and Moshe. Okay, you're on mute. Yochi?
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. And thanks, Anat, for introducing us. As Anat said, I'm Yochi. I am manager of the technical writing department, and Shachar is the VP. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about your experience, Shachar, when it comes to AI?
Well, I kindly adopted it at the beginning. I've been waiting for him a long time, but only in this couple of months, a year or so, it's been working good. But there were a lot of experiences in previous times to bring something that will work. And just now, we succeeded. So this is it. Me and him kind of friends.
Okay, so let's start. Let's get into it. And as you nice folks have already asked, what we're going to be doing now is talking about, and let me just share now our screen. And let's talk about the power. Just a minute, I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, let's unleash the power of ChatGPT for technical writers. We already went through our housekeeping. Everything that we have here is going to be recorded. We ask that everybody go on mute. And just a few words about why we've chosen ChatGPT 3.5. I've spoken to many of you through the last few weeks, and I understand that while there are some people that are really getting involved in it, many folks, really, this is the first time that they are using it, and they're just getting their feet wet. And we feel that 3.5 is really a great place to break your teeth on, to really start to get things moving. And from this moment on, I will not be calling it ChatGPT 3.5, but just simple chat. And so that we can get involved in exactly what's going on. And part of that is also understanding the basis of it from the very beginning and how you can use it in your everyday work. So how are we working this? First, we're going to start with the most pressing issues that we all have in technical writing, understanding what ChatGPT is, best practices, prompts, and tips, where that's the most important part, then how we as writers can leverage chat in our everyday activities, which really leads us to one of the biggest concerns for many writers today is what is the future of what I call human-led documentation, meaning how is it that with what's going on, is something going to happen to us as writers? What is that future? And then our conclusions. So let's start with our most pressing issues, and I'm sure everybody knows them. They're the usual: fighting against SMEs. They're not always cooperative. They may not always be available. Fighting against time, especially deadlines that we ourselves never set and we don't have any control over. And something that's really near and dear to us, and that's fighting for quality. We want to produce a product at the end of the day users are going to read and use. And the only way that we can do that is if we find the tools that can help us. And we really believe that chat is one of those tools, that using it, we can absolutely find solutions to our problems. And whether you're a lone writer, someone that's a veteran that's been in the field for years and years and years, freelancers, lone writers, managers, everybody in between, chat has something to offer every single one of us. So let's now see how we can really deal with that. And we start with understanding the base. I love to start from zero, and that's understanding what is chat, and especially chat's limitations. So Shachar, give us an understanding of what is ChatGPT, what's OpenAI. Give us a little bit of understanding what we're dealing with here.
Okay, basically, ChatGPT or chat at all is like a 6-year-old boy or a girl. So, but he's very smart, but he has the emotions or the ability to understand like a 6-year-old. So the main problem is that we don't believe that he understands something. So we don't ask or we don't explain, because something happened in the last 20 years. We stopped talking, we stopped explaining, we stopped writing. Basically, we're just texting. So everything is very narrow. But now, because that's how you search. For example, if you search with Google, you just write what you need to that the Google will give you the results. But now you have to explain what you want him to do, and that's a leap. And now people need to come back and work with that. After 20 years, they lost it. So I think if we come back and remember what we did, we explain things, we communicate. So that's what we need in order to be able to use ChatGPT correctly.
Okay. There's also something important to understand with that, and that's the limitations. Chat only knows what's in the public domain. In simple English, that means if it's on the internet somewhere, chat will find it. But another one of the limitations, or together with it, is that its information is only up until September of 2021. So that if a new company was born last week, or you want to know the baseball scores from 6 months ago, it can't help you, and it will tell you that. But other than those two pretty much big issues, chat is able to find information everywhere. It's not Google, but it still has a limitation on what it can offer you. Is there any other kind of limitations, Shachar, that we've kind of missed here, or you think that that's the most important ones?
I think that first of all, it's like everything you are searching for. So here also there are all kinds of GPTs that are specializing in things, different things, videos and text and documents and PDFs and just text to bring you something and calculations. So it's not only OpenAI that rules the world. There are a lot of GPTs and sub GPTs, and I think it will be best to understand what works for you and what not. Yeah, that is.
Let me just answer a question that Jackie asked. We're using chat 3.5 and not 4, just so that we'll get back to that. Now, how does chat learn? And I have a very quick example here. This is something that we can all understand very quickly. I asked chat to write one sentence that describes the basic responsibilities of a technical writer. And the answer I got back is something that we all understand. The technical writer is responsible for creating clear, concise, and accurate documentation, and so on. And just for the fun of it, I asked chat to define documentation. And the answer I got back was documentation refers to the process of recording and organizing information. I wasn't too happy with that kind of idea. Sorry. And so I went back to it, and here's the point. Here's where we have to understand what chat does as opposed to Google or just talking to someone. I told it I meant documentation as a noun, not a process, meaning that I wanted our conversation to point in a very specific way. And so it answered me as you use it, you'll notice it'll say things like apologies for the confusion, or I'm sorry, I didn't understand. And then it talks exactly in the direction and with the words that I need. It says that documentation as a noun refers to. Yep. It refers to.
Can you hear us?
Okay, refers to the collection of written, visual, or electronic materials, meaning that now and from this moment on, no matter how many times I talk to it in this session, it knows that I am looking for documentation in a very specific manner. And that's what we have to understand when we work with chat. And Shachar was actually right to think of it as a 6-year-old, a really smart 6-year-old. It will continue on the path, but it will only continue on the path that you tell it to go on. So now I really want to talk about why use it. And some people are really asking me, I don't need it, or it's just too much. And it's truly a quantum leap in the way we work. And I think that many of us who've been around for a while now realize that we've had these quantum leaps. We've jumped from software programs and platforms and knowledge bases. We've gone from place to place. Chat is one of those leaps. This is something that we can't run away from. Chat is now being used, and I'm sure many of you are noticing this. It's being used in writing code. It's being used in so many different aspects in the high-tech quarter that we need to be part of this. But for us in technical writing, It's not cheating. Again, this is not Googling. We want to work smarter and not harder. And we want to free time up for what we've always complained about and always dreamed, and that's quality. If chat can give us the grunt work, can give us the very beginning of the work in a valuable way with drafts and TOCs, and we'll show you examples very soon, then we will have more time for quality work. And that's really been our dream since the very beginning. So let's just now get involved in the best practices, prompts, and tips, because this is where anybody that hasn't touched it yet, or people that maybe have started to use it, will get a better idea of how to work with it. And so that now I want to show this screen. This is the chat screen. I'm going to go live now just to show you how it works. It's very, very simple, right? So I'm now going to go into the new screen. I'm sorry, 1 second, folks. Here we go. Okay, sorry. Okay, now we see the true screen. On the left-hand side on the top, it says new chat. Here in the middle, you have some examples, a little bit of information that can help you just a bit. And on this side, you can see I've just gone on and on for a good while now of all different chats that I've made. The most important point is you have to start with a new chat. Meaning, if I want to start a new subject now, it could be anything. I could even ask you just, who are you? When I start a new chat and I click, what it's doing is it's starting a new conversation with me. And I'm going to now give me a whole discussion of what it is, or a short discussion. But the idea is that unlike humans that can jump back and forth between conversations like we do, chat will continue on with that one session no matter what. If I ask it another question, it's going to still think somehow that it needs to be talking about this old subject. So the first thing is to start always with a new chat. Now, every chat is saved here. If I click on a chat that I did recently, which was today, I can change the name of the chat. I can even click on it and I can have a link for the chat where I can save it, I can send it, I can share this with other people. This is a point also I want to say, we're not going to get too involved in it at this moment, but it is important to understand is that when you share information with chat, remember that that information will then become public knowledge to a certain point. And so any information that you're putting here and then sharing is not staying inside your own world. And that's an important thing to understand. So we can click copy and it'll send a copy. We can save a copy of it. We can also look at any of our documents, and we can also go back and we can reiterate things. We can check on it. We have a lot of freedom here, unlike with regular Google, where all we have is we may get a million different responses, but we're going to have to regenerate that every single time. Here, the information that chat gave us has stayed. And now we've done the basics of understanding what we're talking about. And I've also talked about sharing. I'd like to talk about something that Shachar told me about actually recently, and that's about how to work with Google, how to work with chat and work with a long document. And let me open it. I have a link here that was one of the links that we have. And I'm going to give the basis, and then Shachar, you can talk about it some more. Just a minute. Okay, so I decided to ask it to write me a guide for a Singer sewing machine, and I was very specific. Write a user guide for a Singer sewing machine for the 1970s, and it gave me a very long, involved, pretty good guide, by the way. And this goes on and on. But Shachar, you had told me that what you do is when you have a lot of information, is that you break it up into chapters, and then you guide chat into how to talk to you so that you can always find the information. Can you give us a little bit more information about that?
Yes. Okay. Like a 6-year-old, we need to break down our information into pieces. So we can't overload the system and just put things there and ask, okay, please understand everything. Because we need to work in small pieces, even though we are talking about a large amount of data, if we name, for example, if we name the chapter, for example, chapter 1, if we said chapter 1 is, for example, here, machine overview, we can continue and talk about chapter 1 and ask things about chapter 1 and then go to chapter 2. If we're not called chapters with the name, it will be hard for him to understand. By the way, it's relevant for every GPT ever, including if somebody works with, for example, Midjourney about pictures. So if you will name, for example, if you want it to be a picture of a person that is a call center agent, if you will call him Dan, for example, and then you will talk to Midjourney or ChatGPT or others with the name, then it will be easier for him to understand what you want. And related to chapters, names, or something that you can flag or rely on. So, for example, here, chapter 3, reading the machine. Okay, so I'm asking about certain chapter, everything that I want. I want him to be a part of sub chapters. I can tell him, please divide it into sub chapters, or produce the answer as a table with columns and rows. So we can do that. And the system will understand that you want it the same, but you want it to be a different view for you. So I think it's important for us to take the information and also invest in the view. So I want it to be viewed like a table or a chapter or sub chapters. That's the way to do it.
So subchapters also what we know as H1s, H2s,
Yeah,
and so on. Also, another thing is chat does not deal in diagrams or pictures, but in the same example that Shachar had here, I also said, please describe the diagrams and pictures you would add to the first chapter or whatever chapter that we're dealing with. And it can give me that information again. And obviously it's not going to be able to give me the picture itself, but it would say things like include a picture depicting the correct placement of the thread spool, the spool of thread. And okay, so let me just finish this and then let's answer a few of the questions. Another point of this is many times, especially if we've been around for a long time, we can say, well, we know these things. But the idea is that we have to see chat as somebody that's working with us, as part of our team. And when that happens, this information not only is gold, but it gives us the time to say, okay, now I have these images, let me work on the next point. Shachar, you said that some of the people, there were some questions?
Yeah. That's,
Okay,
yeah.
so I'm going to change while you are doing that.
Okay.
Please.
Let's see.
Okay, so let's go through some questions.
Shachar,
Shachar, read, please.
Different displays. Just a moment. What about ChatGPT 4, which has been opened? Okay, ChatGPT 4 is a paid version. It's much better in many ways, but we wanted something to be, wanted to talk about something that everybody can use. But if you want to know about ChatGPT 4, so ChatGPT 4 has also the plugins that are very, very helpful, and Code Interruptor that it's also more than a plugin that you can upload documents and you can use them, but not everybody has them.
Right, which is why we decided the 3.5 was something that was more democratic and easy to
Yeah.
involve.
And there were more of, not only ChatGPT 4 is strong, we have also Cloud, if somebody knows, Cloud 2 is also something that is very accurate, and it has more responsibility about the content that it provides. It's not open yet in Israel, but is very, very, I think even more advanced than ChatGPT 4.
Okay, let's see another few and then we'll
Can
continue.
you
on.
elaborate the question that asks if you provide a link to an article, can ChatGPT access it?
Yes, we
Mm.
can. You continue generating. The question is that if you provide a link to an article, can chat access it? Yes, once you go into it again and you open it, it enables you to continue on generating more content and more
Can
information.
we copy explanation from ChatGPT into document? Is it
Absolutely. Copyright. Now, I didn't want to get involved too much in copyright. It's something that's it's a very new issue. But what happens is there are issues of copyright and ownership. And bizarrely, on one side, according to all the copyright rules today, you can't copyright information that was not created by a human, which means that if your horse creates something or your plant does, it can't be copywritten. Here, there are a lot of different issues, but I do recommend that everybody look at the OpenAI's terms of use, and I'll put a link to that in the email where you can start to understand this issue. It's a really good point, but it's a very big issue, and lawyers are only starting to grapple with it today. And that's just one last one.
I tried use ChatGPT for coding. It wrote what did you use? If you use the ChatGPT, you're right, but you can still communicate with him and have him correct your code. If you have an error, you can paste it and say this is the error I've got, and he will fix it.
Okay, let's continue on a little
Yeah.
bit, and let's talk about something that's very important. That's treating chat as your writing assistant. What does this mean? Whenever we have any kind of an assistant, we need to provide specific instructions. We need to not focus our information. We need to be able to provide clear examples and prompts in the case of chat, and I'll give you them in one moment. And we need to also always edit everything that we do. And just like working with any assistant, the more we work with them, the better they'll get. But in this case, the assistant and ourselves are improved in our way of working. So let's understand prompts. Prompts are the absolute heart of all work in chat. Without prompts, in essence, there is no work. So Shachar will talk about certain things about prompts. I just want to say that you need to be specific with your needs and your goals. And you need then to understand that that one session, that one give me a topic or write this for me is not enough. You want to go back and fine tune it, enhance it, make sure that it's relevant for you. And before I give you some examples of prompts, Shachar, do you want to add something when it comes to prompts, since I know you've been working with them for a long time?
Just invest in your prompts, not too long because it's overwhelming for him, and not too short because there's not enough information for him to work. Invest in samples for him. For example, say, XYZ, do that like this one. So like a 6-year-old, do things that your friend is doing, act like him.
Okay, so let's have some real prompt examples. And these are just simple ones. Can you make my paragraph less formal? Can you make my paragraph, or you could just say make my paragraph less formal. You don't need those first words. Make my paragraph easier to read. One of the beautiful things about chat is the fact that it's not emotional. It doesn't take offense, and it doesn't also feel that somebody doesn't appreciate their work. Here you can take exactly what the sentence is or the paragraph, and you ask it to also complete a sentence, continue a paragraph. Even write a certain topic in a certain style. You may want to have information that's written in one way, and you want to write it in another way. And so I want to show you just actually a silly little example of the lengths that that chat would go through. And we have here a simple example, an Excel graph creation. And I asked it just, how do I create a graph in Excel? I advise you not to use chat for things like this. It's just a little bit too heavy, but I was just interested in what it wrote. And then we have number 4. In the charts group, you'll find various chart types. Choose the type of graph you want to create, such as bar graph and so on. And I just was curious what it would do if I just threw something out of left field and I wrote, rewrite step 4 in Shakespearean English. The idea is I want you to kind of get yourself away from just thinking straightforward. And what does it say to me? Verily, in thine Microsoft Excel, navigate to the insert tab in the ribbon at the top of the window. Lo, within the chart groups, thou shalt find diverse chart types. You can ask it to write text in biblical. I think I took some API text and we tried to get it with a biblical version. You can do anything, and I really recommend, and I warmly push you to do these things. Get out of that kind of head that you have. See things that are informal or formal. You always want to make sure that what you have there is something that's valuable for your user. And so now back to our friends. And what I want to show you now is what I've promised, of course, and that is a cheat sheet. And I can't say that 5 times fast. So here is Expertine's Tech Writers Chat Cheat Sheet. And it has on it, I'm going to be sending this out to everybody that has participated in our webinar. As promised, it has rules of thumb. It has general prompts, just easy things like create or make a paragraph less formal, all different kinds of ideas, a great way to start working with it. It also has audience suitability, meaning you can say, review my paragraph and assess it if it's suitable for an X audience, for a technical audience, a less technical audience. Always go back to Shachar's idea of that this is a 6-year-old boy or girl.
Oh, girl.
And you can show that and use it to give you exactly what you want. Never take it on face value. It's not Google. Refine, 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 assess. You can ask it to analyze whatever it is that you're looking for. And now I want to talk about hints. And these hints kind of take us a little bit away from chat to bring us back to the world. Again, Shachar said that we've kind of lost ourselves a little bit. We want to stay up to date. We need all of us to stay up to date in the technical writing field to understand what's going on there. We've jumped from all different kinds of software to knowledge bases and platforms and all. We can't lose that when we start to use chat. We also need to have that critical mindset, because chat, no matter how smart it may be as a 6-year-old, will make mistakes. It needs that insight and oversight of humans, and also collaboration with other technical writers. We have Tekshoret, we have all different ways for us to communicate with other writers. We can't lose that when we get involved and we go down this rabbit hole that's called chat. And so now we get down to the nitty-gritty of how do we leverage this? And the areas we talked about, the pain that we have, the areas that we're always fighting with is as always, streamlining our workflows, delivering high quality content, and boosting productivity. We talk about it forever. We're always discussing it. Now let's get involved in it. We'll get to, if there's some questions, you can look at some questions while I do this. So what happens is that we can generate a documentation plan. We can generate a TOC. We can generate drafts. Now, I know in my own head, and when I talk to other writers, when we talked about generating a TOC, everybody says, oh, it's not a big deal. If you're a lone writer, or if this is the first time you're doing this, it's a great way to start. There's no longer a blank canvas. And I want to just give one example, and that's with the TOC, when, especially when it comes to redefining things. And so I have here a Seltzer machine user guide. I've decided, since the only Seltzer machine that I know is SodaStream, I asked it to write a guide that's like a SodaStream. It gave me lots of information, and that was wonderful. But I also noticed it had an electric part of it, and I said that we don't have it. But it also said things that really interested me. It had here recipes and inspiration. Chat is a great place for us to get inspiration ourselves on how to add information we may never think about in general. And so it says here recipes, and I just said, okay, so give me a recipe for a mocktail, you know, a non-alcoholic cocktail. It gives me that information. I can also ask it questions that if I would Google it, it would just lead me down a rabbit hole. And that's, does a soda machine need a warning section according to EU rules? It answers, I'm not a legal expert, but it gives me general information. What it does is not only gives me inspiration, but chat can also be used to point me in the right direction. I may not always have all the information that I need. It won't specifically give me many pieces of information, but at least when it comes to things like this, I have a direction, or I could pass that on to the people that need that direction. Shachar, are there any comments or questions you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I saw a few questions about Hebrew.
Okay,
Two things about Hebrew,
okay.
2 tips. One, OpenAI ChatGPT is not the excellent or the most appropriate way to convert to Hebrew or other languages instead, other than English. It's much better to use the Google Translate. It's more accurate than ChatGPT. A lot more.
That's shocking.
Yeah. The other thing, if somebody is using Google text to speech or other text to speech, if you want to use Hebrew, go to Lakdan. It means that you have punctuations inside
The vowels.
And then it will be much more accurate. That's another thing in Hebrew that you don't have the problem in English. So that's for that matter.
I want to about the confidentiality and the chat. Again, the entire legal area, we're not legal experts in any form, but I've been reading a lot about it. What people are saying today is just be careful about the information that you put on there. It's not that it's not that it definitely becomes public domain and open to the world, but it can be. And that's why also, especially when it comes to code, they're talking about the fact that it's very possible that bad people can put in information or a code or lines of code that other people will use and can be harmful in their systems. So these are areas that you need obviously to talk to lawyers, but everybody is learning with doing. Shachar, we have time for one more question, and then we have to move forward. Can fudge facts so that it has to be cross-checked. Absolutely.
Sure.
Elisheva says that you can fudge the facts. It absolutely does. It never, but again, chat doesn't say that it is the end all. Let's go on to the next one. We talked about streamlining. I want to talk about delivering high quality content. Many times in technical writing, we inherit bad documentation. We also don't always we can't always identify spelling or grammar or stylistic errors. There's also an issue of making sure that everybody's voice is uniform, especially if we have writers in-house, we bring in writers. And so that we need to really understand that at the end of the day, chat can actually help us with all of these issues in one place, but we have to have that critical eye. And I want to show you a really good example of that. Okay, and that's it. Now we have like this. I just wanted to do like this, improve the project integration. And I asked it to improve a sentence for me. And the sentence is long with the project management functions. I just made something up. And it improved it for me. But I want to learn from my mistakes. Or maybe as a newbie, I'd really want to learn from my mistakes. And it gives me, I said, show me what mistakes I made in my original paragraph. And it gives me a nice list of mistakes, spelling errors, grammar errors. What's even more important that you may not find in any kind of system is readability issues. The sentence is too long. The overall clarity and flow of the paragraph could be enhanced. It doesn't take away from a human editor, but it certainly gives us the ability to see where are mistakes. And I want to believe that we can all learn from those mistakes. But again, no matter what, just like any other system and 6-year-old boys, you need to have a human look at this. And now I want to talk about the pitfalls. Pitfalls this is really the issue where this is something important when we really think about our future documentation, human documentation future in technical writing is critical thinking and also editing any work that's been generated by AI. There's also an issue of a human voice. People have started to cotton on to the fact that everybody's using AI or some form of chat for social media. And so that if your first paragraph is too happy, or suddenly someone that only wrote a few sentences is suddenly writing something much longer, I realize that this is coming. We all realize it's coming from chat. Think about that when you start to really use it and then overuse it. But this is a simple example of a simple oversight. I asked it to improve, it's a paragraph, it's really just a sentence, and it was about a camera and a screen. And it was really poorly written, and chat wrote me back. The AMA screen will display the scene captured by the camera only when it's powered on and properly configured as demonstrated below. Now, that could be perfectly good, right? Sounds fine.
Yeah.
But it isn't, and this is the reason why. Chat, at least to this point, doesn't see the images. And so when chat wrote me this sentence that's here as a note, and it says demonstrated below, the image is above. It's something very simple. It's not something large, but when we become over-dependent on any kind of technology, things like this happen. The easiest way to solve that, by the way, is simply to state that all images will be placed above the text or something like that, so that you're giving chat the ability to say to know what word is the correct word above or below. And finally, in these discussions, I want to talk about boosting productivity. And here, I'm sorry.
Just a moment.
Why? I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything that.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I need to know. So when we boost productivity, the best way, and this also comes to quality, is we can have chat help us design templates and style guides. We can help it with a review process. We can create different metrics, and we can also even improve sentence structure without emotion, which we talked about before. But the most important things, and I know that people start to say things like, I know what a style guide is, but in my travels through companies through the years, I found that many companies may have a style guide, but it's not always up to date. It's not always something that they're proud of or they can use. And so here, what we can do is we can use, and here's a good example, we can use chat to give us a style guide for an SDK. Now, it has lots of information here. I may not need it. It may not be valuable. But sometimes when we have, again, this idea that we're bringing another voice into this, we're able to say, you know what, we should be handling errors, or there should be some sort of documentation. The idea is that, number one, is it's giving us more information, but something even more involved than that. And that's the fact that many times psychologically, when someone sees this document, when they see it's set up very nicely and professionally and everything's there, people also have a tendency to treat it differently. It looks more professional. You may not want all the parts, but it has a true value when it comes to the when it comes to actually what is that we're looking for. Let me go back. And now all of these things brings us to one of the most important parts, and that's an open discussion where they're going to open the mic for everybody. And what I want to talk about is the future. Again, I call it human-led documentation. And are we going to survive the AI invasion? And the reason that I'm really happy that Shachar is here is because I want also management's opinion of this. I know that many of the writers that I spoke to have been worried about the fact that their jobs may be in trouble. That at least at the beginning, people are going to say, well, I have AI. Let's have the SME throw some text in and we're finished. And it's that bottom line that everybody's always worried about. So people have this problem. People are worried about it. And I first of all want to hear from you, just as a manager, as a senior manager. How do you feel about it? And what do you think the value that technical writers need to bring to help protect their jobs, to make it AI proof?
First of all, I don't think that it will replace technical writers. But what we see that happens, that we already had a problem in delivering at the right time, in time to market the products, because products are changing so fast. So we as a technical writers can cope with the time. So now we have an aid for that. We can use it like a Swiss Army knife to be able to deliver all sorts of deliverables faster and maybe overcome obstacles that we have today. For example, one of them is our SMEs. Our SMEs are so busy, and sometimes it's an obstacle for us to write or to find them or to talk to them, and we start from scratch. Sometimes we get documents that we need to read.
Cannot hear you. Shachar and Yochi, you're muted.
Shachar got a mute.
Can't
Why
hear.
you are-
Can't hear.
Now you can hear us?
Yeah, please repeat what you were saying just now.
Okay. I'm saying that the challenge that we have today is to cope with the race for knowledge, or for documentation, and the diversity that we need. We have to deliver not only documentation in one line. We need it to be able to use by the sales, by the R&D, by the support, by the sales enablement and marketing and all. So it's a lot to do, and I don't think that if we don't get help for that, we will be able to do that. So now we have an assistant that can assist us to cope with the challenge of delivering on time with a product that is changing rapidly. I think this is the approach that eventually all of the organizations will adopt, not replacing, because I don't think it will work.
Okay, so now how do we, let's open up the discussion now to everybody.
This is okay. Can you help with that?
Oh, so let's open up the conversation to other people. If you'd open up your mics, and let's hear it if you've started to already use chat, and just raise your hands. Let's start to talk. Shimon, come, folks, tell me some things. Let's hear what you have to say.
I already tried it out, a few experiments with it to see what sort of information it would provide, not just technical information. For example, I asked it, what does it think the possibility is of a return of the Shah of Iran to power? And it answered me, not much chance. But I honestly don't think it's going to replace technical writers for a number of reasons. First of all, many of us work with systems that are very much contain information that we don't want competitor companies to find out. So our employers are not going to be happy with us sharing this information with any online application. Secondly, you know, ChatGPT, for all it can help us, it's not going to sit and interview an SME. It's not able to read between the lines. So it's very good that you explain different ways we can use it to help execute our tasks, but I don't really see it in any sense as competing for jobs.
Okay, good point. Anybody else? Adam, somebody, come guys, let's hear what you have to say. Is anybody actually worried? I know that in my private discussions with people are starting to get a little bit anxious. Anybody else want to stand up, say something?
I wonder if
Yeah, Dave.
I know that some companies have moved to docs as code, meaning they've shifted left and have documentation that's written by SMEs, and then they're just editing it. And in that sense, possibly it could be that GPT could possibly threaten their livelihood as editors. But I think that being a technical writer is more than just writing. It's knowing where to get the information. It's knowing how to track it down. It's knowing to think differently and not just, pouring whatever you know onto the computer. And I think that if we could take it and especially when it's built on your own systems. So if you are writing your own documentation and you can apply AI on that gives a really good search solution to your users, but you still have to provide that information. It still has to come from somewhere.
Absolutely. Patricia, you wanted to say something?
Yes. Can you hear me? Because it's a new microphone, so I'm not sure that it's working. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a little concerned about, I take what Anna says is absolutely correct. But there are some areas where ChatGPT might lead to laziness. And when I talk about laziness, I'm referring to the fact that within technical documentation, there are certain rules and conventions about how we express ourselves, right? There are things like actually don't use future tense. You should never say should, little things like that. Instructions should be, each step should have just one instruction. So I'm afraid, not afraid, but I anticipate a problem that with something like AI, making it very easy for technical writers to produce by the deadline, before the deadline, some documentation that they will bypass what I consider very, very important conventions.
It's a good point. You know what someone said to me recently in one of my conversations with writers was that it's not just that the SMEs don't always have time, but they use AI to understand more of that technical background that they themselves don't have. Not every technical writer is an engineer, and it gives them a little bit more of an education. It doesn't make them engineers or doctors or anything, but it gives them that little extra edge that can help them from that point, the good side, when they are talking to their SMEs or to ask better questions. But it's absolutely true. Dave, anybody else? Ziv, who else wants to make? Yeah, Dave, please. We don't hear you, Dave. Don't hear you. No. Try again. Dave, we can't hear you.
Which Dave are you talking to?
EGYES. Eggs, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name.
Dave Edges.
Edges, thank you. Dave, we can't hear you.
Bummer.
Okay, let's try somebody else.
Okay, can I ask a question, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, is it possible in the future, maybe, I don't know if it exists today, that there should be a closed chat system whereby a company would be able to put in all of its internal documentation and stuff that would be used only internally in the company, and thereby not be worried about any of the information getting out to the world?
Absolutely. And that actually is a discussion that we were talking about to go forward. Some companies are already doing that. They have their own knowledge base, which uses AI technology. And they build their own internal system. So absolutely, some companies are starting with it. It's a lot more involved and a lot bigger, obviously, discussion than what we have here. But it definitely is something that is not just in the works, it's here already today.
README.io already have a tool like that.
I'm sorry, Anna,
I'm saying README.io, the doc tool already has, it's called a Knowledge Owl, and or something like that, or Owl AI, and it runs on your own information and generates an answer. They have a beta that's running, and we joined it, and it's interesting. It's getting some interesting results.
You can write it. You can write this the URL here in the chat. There are also a few. So we want to understand sometimes where we're going to go now. What is the future awaits us? So one is that there are a lot. Sorry.
Ah, Dave, he's back.
Dave, go ahead, Dave.
I'm going low tech now. So I just want to, on the one hand, I want to echo my full agreement with ChatGPT and generative AI being more a helper tool for technical writers than a threat. This really makes me sound quite ancient, but I actually recall a time back in the 1980s when there were educators complaining that computers were going to do homework for students, and I even remember people expressing anxiety about, dig this, word processors replacing the need for writers and editors. So this is a helper tool that empowers us. It is not a threat. And just final statement: any company that would choose to use ChatGPT instead of technical writers or technical writing team, I would feel sorry for that company.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to start to close up now. We have 1 minute left.
I think that, I mean, people are leaving, so we can,
let's
we can formally close the session.
I just have one last thing.
Thank everybody.
Thanks everybody, but one last
thing. We'll stay on for whoever has a question. We'll stay on until everybody's questions are answered. So I just formally want to thank all of you for coming, for joining, for pitching in, for asking questions, for sharing. Special thanks to Yochi and Shachar for presenting. We will post the recording tomorrow, and we will see you in future webinars. And again, those of you that want to stay and have some questions and stuff, we are here until all your questions are answered. So
also, I'd like to ask everybody to send us some love and to drop a comment on the Facebook page and on our LinkedIn page. Tell everybody about the webinar and tell your friends, and I hope you share it around, and we'll be back for more. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yael? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Did I answer your question?
Thank you.
Yael.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.